Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. We're delighted to have you here to answer your job search questions on this Friday morning. I'm joined today by Jo Weech, who has not been with us for a while, but we are delighted to have her back. She is now the head of HR for a global company and is going to be excited to tell us about the jobs that she has actually open, which is great. And Vern Schellinger is with us as well, our expert networker, and myself, Shira Lotzar, career coach and resume writer and LinkedIn profile creator and all kinds of stuff to help job seekers. So we are here to help you with your questions. So Kathy, Ty, Amani, Eric, does any of you want to start with a job search question that we can answer for you? Oh, and if you don't have one at the moment, maybe Jo, do you want to share some of the openings that you have?
Sure. I'm unmuted, right?
You're unmuted. You're good.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. This is going to be one of those days today, but yes. So I am. Oh, you want me to? Okay. So I am. I'm in Clements Worldwide, and we are a niche insurance organization that insures people that are expats from countries in 170 countries, from everything from commercial lines of insurance to personal lines of insurance. And we have current openings, and we will always have openings for commercial producers. You have to be licensed to sell insurance to have that role, but we're also looking for a senior account manager, or other places call it a senior finance manager. So, so we're actively sourcing for that. We're sourcing for a social media manager. We are also looking for an HR generalist, and we are looking for account managers in the different lines that we have. So I would say connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know what you're looking to do, and I will look to see if we have either current or upcoming openings for you or for whoever you might want to refer.
Terrific. Thank you, Jo.
Thanks.
So glad that you're back with us. Okay, so hey, Sarah Lynn, good to see you. You're on mute.
Hi, everybody. I apologize for being late.
No
I'm so
worries.
sorry.
All good.
No
All
problem.
good. All good. All right. So who has a job search question you want to ask?
I can start with one. It's probably an easy one, but I've been giving conflicting advice I've talked to 4 different recruiters and I have 3 different answers. So I put my resume together and it's in chronological order, and I took all the months off of it, so it's just years.
Mm-hmm.
I was told to do that by 2 of the recruiters, and then one of the recruiters wanted me to put all the months back on it. So now I have like 5 versions of my resume because she wanted to see it that way. And I just wanted, and my LinkedIn profile now has all my months on it too. And I just wanted to know, is there like an industry standard? I don't want people to think I'm hiding something, but I've just been told, to do it different ways.
Changed. Yeah, it's changed. I mean, when I do resumes, I'm always doing just years. I just find it a little simpler, a little more streamlined. It brings up less questions. It's just easier, just year to year. I think on applications though, they will often ask you for months. Mm-hmm. So, do that. But look, every recruiter is different. Some recruiters want the months. I think that's fine. It's, like how much detail do you give? Like, for example, no one, and this sounds ridiculous to say, no one's going to give the day, right? Like it's silly. So like what do you do? I think that the years are fine, but that's my personal opinion. On the other hand, months are more accurate. So, if you don't have a problem putting the months in, then do that too. I think either way is fine, really. It just depends. It's a personal opinion with each recruiter.
Gotcha.
I have a pretty strong opinion about this.
Oh, good.
So do you really think anybody in an interview is going to ask you, now, was it May or June when you started at this particular job? Now, so and all months do is add text to your resume, and the more white space you have on a resume, the better. So wherever you can save a word or whatever, leave it off. Now, if a recruiter is saying specifically, I need the months, then for that recruiter, I guess you got to put the months on there. But otherwise, I just don't see any need, with one exception. If you have one of those jobs or a volunteer opportunity that went from February to November of 2015, then you might put those months for that one particular volunteer assignment or contract, assignment that you had. But other than that, I don't see any need to have months on the resume.
Yeah. I took them off a long time ago.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that if you're applying for a federal contracting role, it's imperative to put the months, because believe it or not, the recruiter has to sit there and count up exactly how many years and months you have doing a particular thing. So like if it's a software engineer, for example, they need to know how long you've been doing a specific type of coding or whatever. And so they're literally adding up the months and years. And then there are those hiring managers. They have to have at least 3 years doing XYZ. So the recruiter's in there truly trying to add up all the.
Joe, you just went on mute. Joe? Oh, there you are.
Oh dear. Hear that? A
Yeah.
phone call came in, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So were you
Well,
able to hear the part?
I guess, Joe, I would hope that organizations that need that for that specific reason would have those instructions in the, in the job announcement.
Unfortunately, it's not actually published there, because I've worked for a multitude of federal contractors and they don't actually put that in there. They just say, minimum of 3 years or whatever, but then the recruiter's there counting up the months. So, or if they have to have a minimum of 7 years, they're literally going through to see, okay, in these different positions, they were doing this for how long. So that's the only time that I've ever seen it needed. Otherwise, I'm in 100% violent agreement with both Chair and Vern that just leave off those months. I do not have months on my own personal resume either.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm in the middle of doing 2 federal resumes, and I know how to write federal resumes using the blocks of text. There are 3 jobs that I've had, but I am only referring to this one job that I had for 20 years. In between 1995 and 2015. So for that job, I am writing everything in the text blocks. But for the other 2 jobs, I'm only putting some bullet points. Is that enough for the jobs that I'm not referring to just put bullets?
So none of us are federal government experts on this call. We used to have Corliss Jackson and her team that would join us, and that's what they do. But Joe, you're probably
because
the closest.
You have the 20 years. They're never going to need more than 20 years of anything.
Okay, so it's okay to just put bullets for the other ones.
Yep. You don't need to have anything. If you're doing one thing and it has 20+ years, no, I've never seen a job rec that said more than 20 years experience of something. So you're good to.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you may also, if you want to double check, I mean, I'm sure Joe's completely right, but I would just say for any federal, put this way, if you have a federal government resume question, you are certainly welcome to reach out to Corliss Jackson. I think she's open to giving you a little free advice here and there. She used to be on the call. Of course, if you ever want to work with her, you certainly can. I'm going to put her.
I've worked with her before. I know her. I
know.
you
do? Okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. For those who don't know her, I'm just going to put her. I'm going to put her email in the chat here. Corliss@federalJobResults.com. If you have a question, she's open to answer.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Well, sure. All right. Other questions?
Do you hear anything about the federal government? Like they're having trouble hiring?
I thought I heard that recently, that well, first of all, everybody's having trouble hiring. That's just across the board. That's actually it's a phenom right now. I mean, so much so that HR people are kind of convulsing. They don't know what to do, frankly. They can't find good people, even though there's so many people in the market. It's an irony, right? You've got the great resignation, as people are calling it, all these people looking for jobs or leaving their jobs. But on the other hand, you have a talent shortage. And part of the reason is that employers are still looking for unicorn candidates. So people are missing each other. And plus, a lot of people are looking for higher salaries. And so employers are now having to up their salaries. So this is a good market for you guys. It's very, very competitive out there. There are people getting multiple offers. And so employers are like having to be more competitive, and not only compensation, but offering more remote work, because that's what a lot of people are insisting on these days. And it's HR people are really in a spot. And in fact, I just gave a little presentation the other day to a group of HR folks locally, and we were talking about this very thing, and they're like, "Oh, what do we do?" You know, so it's a really interesting time. It is not what it was a year and a half ago. Let's put it that way. So it's a good time to be looking for a job. You're in a better, more competitive position now to get, you know, something that's more right for you. So
Yeah, thanks. I've seen so many job announcements for recruiters.
yeah, oh yeah,
And
Yeah,
nobody
yeah.
wants to leap into that bowl.
yeah.
I
No, there are a
actually
lot of
had to have an agency find a recruiter for me, because even though I'm networked with probably, and I'm not making this number up, but over 5,000 recruiters worldwide, every single person I knew who had gotten let go during COVID, 100% of them started new jobs since January of this year. And so people are joking that it's harder to find a recruiter than a software engineer with a full scope polygraph clearance. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it's really tough.
yeah.
Funny.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting market. Things have opened up. For sure.
Yeah, I'm looking for a job in sales, and I still see announcements that have like this one or two things in it that are very precise. I guess that's the unicorn
Yes,
part
that's
of
right.
it.
That's right.
You know, it's a software program inevitably that I don't know, but I could learn it, you know?
So this is it. There is, well, in recruiting, we call it, some people call it the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. What you don't know on the job announcement is which is which. And so if you, my rule of thumb is when you're applying to a job that you're not 100% qualified for, if you're at least 80% on, apply. And the 80% on is tip to me, the first 3 to 4 bullets, not the 7th or 8th. Okay. So the first 3 to 4 bullets, they will typically say, they'll say required, blah, 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 you know, industry experience X, skill set Y, whatever. If you do not have that, I would think 3 times before applying, because typically that's what they want. As you go farther down the list, you typically get into the, you know, the nice to haves. Not that they're necessarily thinking of it that way, but in my estimation, right, you might be able to get away with it. If it's just like a software program, you could say, you know, you could even say in your cover letter, right? While I don't have experience in X, willing to learn. In the interview, you explain that and you see, is it a must have? Is it a nice to have? And the reason, what makes the distinction between both has to do with learning curve. So to what extent is the employer willing to have you have a longer learning curve? Because nobody has time to train anymore. That's gone out the window, right? People don't have time to train. Everybody wants somebody to come in and slide into home base. The question is, how quickly do they need you to get up to speed? Because they've got their business objectives that they need right now, right? You got to perform now, whatever that means. And so sometimes they need you to have some deeper experience in a certain skill set so that you can, you know, get up to speed more quickly, because they know you're going to have some sort of learning curve just about their company anyway. I mean, that's normal, but the skills that you bring in will determine how quickly you can be productive.
Okay.
And by the way, not for nothing, if it is a software program, I will suggest this because of, as they say, YouTube University, you know, because it is easier to learn software now on your own. If you ever see a requirement for something, just start to Google it, learn it a little bit. I'm not saying misrepresent anything ever, but you can say, I just took a little video class or whatever. I'm learning it. Okay. So that by the time you get to the interview, you can legitimately say, I am familiar with, and explain exactly what you've done. I didn't know the skill before I saw this announcement, but I've taken it upon myself to start doing some, you know, online classes, and I've gotten more familiar, and look, I'm minimizing my learning curve. So
Okay.
And even more specifically, if you're, you know, looking at a YouTube video and maybe what you're seeing in this software program might be, maybe some components of it are similar to a software program, you know, then you can say that.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
That's exactly right. Like, for example, in databases, you know, some people say, oh, one database is like another. Well, yes and no, right? There is to some extent, a database is a database. There's nuances, right? So I would, to Fern's point, yeah, if you know something that's similar, mention that.
Okay.
Yeah, but get up to speed. I mean, it's all, look, it's just an opportunity to learn something new, you know?
Yeah.
And then you can add it to your resume and you can say familiar with X. Not expert, but you can say familiar with.
Okay.
And just to add to Shira's point about, you know, the top 3 or 4 bullet points on a job announcement, And in all the years that I was in HR, I was just as guilty as this as every other HR person. I mean, it's like, this is the walk on water candidate, right? If you have all of these things, you must walk on water, right? And there's no perfect candidate for any particular job. So I just emphasize again what Shira's saying. What are the top in your learning about the job? What are the top 3 or 4 key things? And if so, then go ahead and apply for it.
Okay. I do have another question, if I can hold the time. I worked for the Census Bureau for over a year, and that ended a year ago. At the beginning of this year, I worked for a company for just 2 months. Should I put that one or not?
When you say worked for a company, full-time W-2 employment or just a contractual?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, so it only lasted for a couple of months.
Correct. I took it off.
Yeah, I'm of mixed mind. I know the rationale here, and I could go both ways with it. Look, at the end of the day, accuracy is important. So I would normally say, hey, list it. On the other hand, I appreciate why people take it off. Vern and Joe, do you have opinions on this? I mean, it's always a tricky one.
I guess the company you worked for 2 months, was it, what was the circumstances? I mean,
I was hired by the executive director or general director, and she was pushed out after 2 months, and she had hired me. So there was no one left to train me. It was a small company.
yeah.
Then I would put a line on there that said that there was an organizational shift, and so the position was eliminated, which it was. If there was no one to train you, I think that's perfectly legit to put that.
Yeah, it was eliminated.
And you know what, to Joe's point, and a lot of people don't do this, but you actually could, in general with your resume, you can put a little reason for leaving. Okay, you would put it in parens. Typically, I've seen it done. Let's say, you have your dates. Usually on the right hand side, right underneath the date, in plain type, not bold. Just
Okay.
a reason for leaving, colon, and something super short, position eliminated, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is
Way
actually a helpful little add-on for a recruiter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the key thing in explaining any of those types of situations when you're talking to a recruiter or in an interview is, again, that's why I asked, what was the situation about? To me, that sounds like a very easy answer for you in an interview to say, this is what happened. And that's why it was only 2 months. The HR people get nervous if they see 2 months here, 2 months here, 3 months there. They're thinking, wow, this
Right, you're a job hopper.
This is a job hopper,
Yeah.
or this person keeps getting fired from
Yeah.
jobs, right? So all of those negative things creep in. But as long as you can come up with a very
Exactly.
simple, rational answer, then
That's
I
right.
wouldn't worry about it too much.
It's very true what Vern is saying, because whether or not you put the reasons on in an interview, sometimes the employer will, right, they'll go through, why'd you leave here? Why'd you leave here?
Yeah.
And especially with people who have shorter tenure, a year and a half here, a year there, some people do, just for whatever.
Yeah.
When there are legitimate explanations, recruiters typically calm down, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because again, they're trying I always say this, they're always trying to minimize their risk in the hire. At every single turn, from not wanting job hoppers to compensation to skill set, culture fit, you name it, that's the employer's job. Minimize the risk in the hire. So wherever you can help them do that, do it.
Yeah. And just another tip that to Shira's point, when I was in HR and I would interview people, I would ask, why did you leave here? I would also ask, what did you learn when you were in that position? What was the key thing that you learned in terms of that role? Now, most people may not ask that, but in preparing for the interview, I would recommend that you say, okay, I was here for 3 years. What were my key takeaways? What did I learn? What were my key accomplishments? Those types of things. And that just should be part of your prep for the interview.
So hope that helps, Sarah Lynn.
It does. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Sure. All right, other questions?
I have sort of a related question. If an interview asks you, what did your last boss say about you? And it wasn't a real good relationship. How would you answer that without, being an omission and quite frankly, lying to them, I guess, if you omit something?
The question is, literally the question was asked, what do they say about you?
Yeah. What would your last boss say about you?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
In a situation like that, you might want to just go ahead and be a little transparent. So what, not for you to, this is a public recorded call, so I'm not saying that you have to explain your whole story. Please don't feel that, but, you may want to think about, why didn't you guys get along? Like, what was it? There could just be, you saw things differently, and you had different perspectives on the role, or maybe it's a bit of a personality mismatch or what have you. And if there's something that you can share that's not going to throw anybody under the bus, you or him, you or that person, him or her, and you can say, in that particular case, or maybe you could say, I have had some boss relationships in my life that have been really, really fabulous. This last one probably didn't fit into that category. So would it be okay if I could share with you maybe what my previous boss said, the one before, something like that, like deflect a little, just very, like that.
Yeah. I can give you a personal example, and looking back on it, I don't know if it was the right thing to do, because I look back on it and I said, boy, I volunteered information that could have kept me from getting the job. But I was hired for a senior HR role. And the person who recruited me, who was going to be my boss, everything was amazing through the whole recruiting process. And she had actually had 3 or 4 other candidates, and she wanted the HR team to, weigh in on whether they thought that was the great, good candidate. And they all put thumbs down to everybody. And I was the first one that was thumbs up. So, I got the job. And within the first month of the job, I realized that the way my new boss was approaching this was kind of totally different than the impression that I got during the whole interviewing process. And we were just completely opposite in the way we thought and the way we were approaching HR. And, a year later, I was fired. And later in a job interview, they asked me about that position, and I basically told them, exactly what I just said here. I was pretty transparent. It was like this one person hired me, and then this other person was my boss, and it just didn't work out. And so now I actually landed that job. At the time I said, oh man, did I blow it by being that transparent? But I guess at least in that case I didn't. So, but that's a tough question, as Shira said. So
the company that I used to work for 20 years, if somebody would call them another employer or recruiter and ask, the only information they would ever give is, what dates are you asking about? I can only confirm that person has worked here from that date to that date. And you might say that about your former employer, that they're very correct. Their HR department is very correct. And probably the only information, they'll give you is this. And maybe that will deter them from calling the HR department.
It sounds like what Ty is talking about is more like conversationally in the interview. So what would your last boss say about you? Like, what do they think about you, right? What you're talking about, Sarah Lynn, is more checking a reference.
Yeah.
It's a little different. That's more the formal type of, may I speak with your boss kind of thing, Yeah. But you're right. But there are a lot of companies that are they fear litigation, and so they only do name, rank, and serial number. That's very common.
And again, I think that type of question goes back to what Shira, always says. The employer's trying to minimize the risk. What would your last boss say about you? Obviously, what they'd want to hear is these glowing things, and how great you were and how you accomplished all these objectives. But if that's not true, and then it potentially, oh my God, he had a problem with his last boss. How people jump to conclusions. He had a problem with his last boss. Oh, we don't want to hire him. So they're, again, trying to minimize risk. Oh,
which is to me, not the best way to go. I mean, I appreciate why people do it, because
yeah.
how else do you judge whether somebody's going to be a good fit, because you don't know. But on the other hand, there are so many situations where somebody was a wonderful fit with their last employer or whatever employers, but may not be the best fit for this culture, because cultures are different, supervisors are different,
Different.
situations are
Okay.
different. You just don't know, but that's the best that they can come up with, is what was your past life like, to indicate what your future life's going to be,
Yeah.
I almost think that if you don't say something negative, like they're fishing for, then it's like they look at you like, oh, you're not being truthful.
Yeah.
Because even if you had a great boss, there has to be something there that didn't click.
Yeah.
Everybody has something like that in their past, though.
Yeah.
I try to steer the conversation in a slightly different direction, go off on a tangent, and they never notice.
Well, at the end of the day, if you keep your mindset on the idea that they are trying to judge whether you're a good fit, do your best to speak into that, right? Because oftentimes employers don't know the questions to ask you. They don't. Most people are winging it, even recruiters, right? We don't really know, we guess. But if you walk a mile in their shoes and then you say to yourself, okay, look, there are all these categories that the employer is trying to box check. Am I going to be a good culture fit? Do I have the right skill set to minimize the risk? Am I good compensation? Is the commute going to be okay? Like all these different, am I going to get along with the hiring manager? Just think about it. If you were the hiring manager, what boxes would you be checking? Then wherever you can in the interview, just speak into those things. Ask good, not just in terms of your past, but ask good questions. So, well, tell me about the culture here. Tell me about the hiring manager, their expectations, their pet peeves, those kinds of things. Tell me about the resources I'm going to need, the challenges, the strategy. All you ask the good questions so that you know whether it's good for you, but also you'll be able to speak from your past and say, oh, I'm glad you mentioned about the culture fit. I'm glad you mentioned about strategic goals or whatever. Let me tell you about some past experiences that might be helpful for you to make a good decision about me. Because they don't often even know what to share.
Yeah.
You got to pull it out of them a little bit. In fact, we recruiters do that all the time. That's our job, right? When we're working with a hiring manager, what about this? And we're like, yeah, right. And we consult with them and help them figure it out. Like, who do you really want? Why do you want this person? What are they going to be achieving? What's the environment like? All these different things. And then it sort of comes tumbling out. And our job is to frame it in such a way as would be, attractive to you and make sure that you're a good fit. You've got to do the same thing sometimes with the employer in the interview.
Yeah. And to Shira's point, by asking questions, if you're uncovering, information for them and you can connect it, as she said, to something in your past, a person you worked with, a relationship you had, a project you completed, then you can feed it back to them. And, this is what they just told you, here's what the culture looks like. And now you could give them an example of an organization with a similar culture and what you did and how you succeeded and how you built relationships, which helps to minimize the risk. Right? You're telling them, what they need. And as Shira said, interviewers are sometimes they're not good interviewers.
Winging it.
I mean, my last interview for my last job, I interviewed with the chief financial officer, and he spent the first 5 or 10 minutes telling me how much pressure he was under to replace the former senior VP of HR, because he was loved by everybody. And everybody wants me to get another guy just like him. And he's going on and on and on. And I'm going, this is an interview. You're supposed to be asking me questions to see if I'm the fit, right? So I asked him a question. I said, could you tell me the skills, the behaviors? What did this person do that made him so lovable, so respected, so whatever? And so once he started to tell me what, these behaviors and skills were, then I could give him a little bit about my background and why, hey, I'm a
Smart, yeah.
That's right.
So you just never know when you go into an interview because there could be somebody who's really skilled at interviewing, or it could be the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, very often, first thing they say is, so tell me a little about yourself.
So,
You know, it's interesting. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this. There's there's a bunch of job seeker groups in town. One of them is called 40 plus. And 40 plus, they do, you know, offer free programs and all that. But anyway, they have this, I forget what they call it. It's like a boot camp, you know. Anyway, so they have this thing that they call TMAY, TMAY, tell me about yourself. They literally help people prepare to answer that question. It's a thing. It really is, because where do you even start, right? Well, 1924, I was born in a log cabin in Idaho. Like what do you? And of course, they're not looking for your full history, right? When they say, tell me about yourself, they're looking for a short, compelling narrative that says to them, why are you sitting in this interview seat? Why you? Why us? Why now? So there needs to be some sort of, you know, encapsulated narrative that speaks to all roads led you here, right? In terms of your career path. And then you can turn it into something that speaks to, right, why you're a fit. I've never listened to how they do their TMAs, but my version of that is what led you here, and then how does where you're here connect you to where you're going.
You know, Shira, they actually did that this week on a Monday night class.
Oh yeah.
And you can pull it off their YouTube channel.
Oh, good. All right, great. Thanks, Karen.
Whose YouTube channel is it? 40 plus?
So 40 plus. So
40
40
plus, I think it's DC.
Yeah. So it's 40 PLUSDC.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks for that. In fact, I haven't mentioned in a while all the different other job seeker groups that are around the DC area. That they're one. They meet every Monday morning. Then there's Career Network Ministry, otherwise known as CNM, and they meet on Tuesday evenings. There's Career Confidence. They meet on Saturday mornings. Then there's the JCA, and they actually have something called the Career Gateway, and it's a week-long program.
And that's how I met you.
Yeah, I remember. And it's a week-long program, and they do it. I think it's every month for a week. Now that one actually costs $75, but everything else is free.
It is worth it.
Yeah.
It is worth every
Intensive, for like a full days. It's really, really interesting stuff. So,
and even now I'm referring back to the information because they give you a notebook, and that was fantastic.
Yeah. They're all really good, really helpful.
Wait, what is this JCA?
Yeah, JCA, I'll pull it up for you guys. The JCA Career Gateway. I will put it in the chat right now.
Are they another meetup group on Zoom?
No. This particular one, well, I mean, first of all, they do meet virtually, okay, but they're not like this. They're not a weekly group or whatever. They are a week-long job search class, and it costs $75, and they do it like once a month. So it's a little different setup where you're actually in the class all day long. It's not 5 days in a row, right, Sarah Lynn? It's like
Monday, Wednesday. Well, no, it actually
I think it happens over a 2-week period. Is that right?
over a 2-week period. So there was it started Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the following Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah, so it's 5 full days.
And then optional after that are the brush up programs classes, which are short. There's 3 on Word, 2 on Excel, 2 on PowerPoint, and 1 or 2 on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Now, for what it's worth, every one of those classes I do, I step in for one of those days and do a 2-hour advanced LinkedIn training, which is actually on my website. I'll give you one of the videos there. So if you go to purposefulhire.com, I think I've shared this link before. Go to purposefulhire.com, go to the job seeker tab, go to Shira Speaks to Job Seekers. I have a whole bunch of videos down here. One of them is called Using LinkedIn Like a Pro. And that actually is to one of the JCA classes.
And if you do anything, I would strongly recommend everybody watch that one, because we taped the class where Shira presented LinkedIn And I watched it 3 times. And each time I got something more out of it. LinkedIn, you're not gonna get away from it if you need to find a job.
Yeah.
It's become so crucial, and it does take a lot of people, such as myself, out of your comfort zone, because you don't really like to approach people, even if it is through LinkedIn, online, etc. But you have to, and Shira points that out, gives you the reasons why, and then tells you how to do it in a way that makes you more comfortable.
Yeah, because it's all relationship building. It really is, and LinkedIn is a database, but it's a database of people that somehow could be connected to you. And you've got to really look at your reasons for reaching out to different people in different ways, because at the end of the day, it is a relationship. It's not just about you getting something from people. It's about you giving as well, right? And there could be a relationship here that could be formed or strengthened or resurrected. How many of us have LinkedIn contacts we completely forgot about? Happens all the time. Like, oh, so-and-so, it's been forever. In fact, I had this happen earlier this week. I was looking up for a client because I do career coaching, and I was looking for a client, some contacts. And how about this? I came across a woman who I've known. I was trying to make a connection for my client, right? She was in the healthcare sector. I was looking for healthcare people. And this woman, Allison, popped up. And when I pulled up her, and I know this woman, Allison, and when I pulled up her profile, and I hit the message button to, actually write her a message on behalf of my client, turns out this woman, Allison, had written to me a message, because she's first level to me, had written to me on like September 22nd. I didn't see it. I did not see the message. And she was asking, she actually had a legitimate question for me. So I was like mortified. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I wrote her an email or whatever. But the point is that, you got to keep up with your LinkedIn. People are writing you, might be writing you. You've got to write them. Like you want to keep up these relationships. It is very, very important to do that. And you never know. How many people as a recruiter, how many people have I placed because I recruited them on LinkedIn? Most recruiters now really go there, I would say first. I mean, that is really our database to go find people. So it's a really, really important tool to use, both to be found and to find others. You could be kind of be your own recruiter. Yeah.
I have a very different question, if that's okay.
Mhm.
I was recently interviewing for a job, and I don't know how many of these people were direct versus indirect, but the job description said that they would manage 25 people. And when I talked to the recruiter, I didn't get a chance to ask that question, but I was essentially told, because I didn't manage that many people, I would not be considered for the job, which I understand. But is there anything, can you relate like how you approach your direct and indirect reports? Is there a way to answer that question, even though you don't have that specific experience, to say, look, I can handle multiple reports? I don't know.
Well, so it kind of all depends. One of the things you could actually ask back when they ask, well, how many people you supervise? You can say, look, I've supervised different people in different circumstances. Can you tell me what kind of supervisory skills you're looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, we want project management or coaching or this or that. Okay, then you can speak to it more. Then you can say, well, look, I managed, this many people as direct reports. I had experiences with indirects. I've led teams, cross-functional teams in my volunteer life. I know, Kathy, you've been a volunteer, certainly, right? I've overseen volunteer, whatever. And I developed skill X, skill Y, skill Z.
Okay.
Right? Because at the end of the day, the only reason why they're asking for the number is they think, oh, well, it's to minimize the risk. It's the unicorn. We want you to have been there, done that, have the t-shirt. But really the underlying cause or the underlying motivation for that is we want somebody who has these skill sets, and they think that that's going to come with, let's say, number of people you've supervised. I'd unpack it more.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Verena, you want to share a networking tip?
So I just had a call yesterday with a person that I'd recently been introduced to in my network. So this was, again, the people in your network that are most important to you are people that, and at Contacts Count, we refer to as advocates. These are people who know you well, who can refer you, who can speak to your skills and, experience to other people, who can recommend you to people, who can call you and say, hey, I just saw this opportunity and I know it might be right for you. So you want to develop as many relationships that have that level of trust and mutual respect. And again, when someone is your advocate, you are their advocate. So you do those same things for that other person. So I have a particular person in my network who's an advocate, and he said, I want to introduce you to someone. And he introduced me to that person. That person I had a call with him yesterday, and he wants a contract for me to do some networking business. He's introduced me to a president of a bank. He's introduced me to a college president, all of whom are potentially clients for the work that I do with Contacts Count. So the power of developing those trust-based relationships and then being able to be connected to those people's networks, it's exponential how many different opportunities might come your way. And as you all know, that, I mean, networking is just so critical to your success in the job search. So, and so if you have advocates in your network, obviously you should be touching base with them on a regular basis. And whenever I do a session, I ask a couple of questions. How many advocates do you want in your network? And the answer to that is as many as possible. The second question is, how many advocates do you actually have in your network today? And we actually have a little quiz or a test where you can kind of determine whether somebody's an advocate or not by answering some questions. So just keep that in mind, and remember, it's about, teaching and giving. The more you teach people about yourself, the more they can help you. And then you've got to be able to learn those same things about the other person so that you can help them in any way possible.
And along those lines, so Vern and I actually have done a joint presentation on this once over the summer for BoomerWorks. For those of you who don't know, BoomerWorks is a volunteer organization that I run for professionals age 50 plus who want to re-career into self-employment. And so we gave a presentation on networking. And so to complement what Vern is talking about, so he has his model. What do you call it? The 5 A's or the 6 A's? Advocates, allies.
Yeah, I mean, the model that we have at Contacts Count basically is the different types of conversations you can have. So you can have an accidental conversation any day, any week, any given day. It's just an accident. Then you can have acquaintances. Acquaintances are friends of friends, or someone you could get connected to if you wanted to through a mutual contact. And then we have associates. Associates are anyone who's in a common grouping with you. So anybody that works at your company, anybody that goes to your place of worship, anybody that goes to your gym, anybody that goes to your PTA meetings, anybody who has a common bond to you, even if you've never talked to them, they're your associates. And then there are your active conversations, and it's those active conversations that eventually lead to you creating advocates in your network.
And so I have my parallel version of that is what I call the family tree networking. I'm just going to share the slide here.
Yeah.
It has to do with relationships, right? With the kind of relationships that you have. So I say they're twins, siblings, first cousins, and second cousins. And so your twin is somebody who knows you by voice, right? So it's somebody who's going to dance at your wedding and is going to help you move. Okay. You never have to say your first name when you pick up the phone. Okay. It's hi, it's me. Right. Your siblings, right, are people who know you by first name. So Vern and I, if I just say, hey, it's Shira, you know exactly who I am. And we're close, right? It's a close first name relationship. First cousin is somebody who's a past relationship. It's a warm connection. It's one of those resurrectable things. Vern, I think you call them dormant relationships, where it's
dormant.
Right. And Vern and I actually had fall in that category. We knew each other in our professional circles for a period of time, lost touch. And then X number of years later, we found each other again, actually through this meeting, through actually somebody who used to be on this call. Like, hey, Vern, hey, Shua, it's been a long time. Blast from the past. That person is resurrectable. Okay. And a lot of those people, those dormant relationships are in your LinkedIn contacts and are worthy of resurrecting because they would love to hear from you. As long as you left on good terms, you could easily resurrect them. And then maybe you could help each other. In fact, I had that happen recently in the last month or two, where I had two colleagues, HR OD consultant types who were in my network. They came back to me through, I don't know, however it was. And both of them in the last month or so, both ended up referring me new clients because we connected. They heard what I did, like, oh, you now do blah, blah, blah. Great. And they have a client for me, right? Now that isn't why I reconnected. I just was like, hey, Liz, hey, Ann. And we just had a lovely conversation, but then something positive happened. So you never know what can happen out of a resurrected relationship. And then the last one is a second cousin, just a past acquaintance, someone who you're friendly with and not close to, or might even just be, hey, well, you met at a conference, right? Hey, John, you and I met at, and you say your first and last name. Hi, it's Kathy Leda. We met at the association, da, 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 da. You may not remember me, but, oh, right, Kathy. Okay. It's still a connection. It's not a cold connection. It's not a stranger, but you could still get it going and something could actually come of it. So as you're prioritizing your networking, what you'll find is that your twins and your siblings are the people who want to help you, as Vern might say, an advocate. They want to help you with your networking. They want to go after jobs for you. They're proactively thinking about you. If they know that you're looking for a job, they will proactively think about you. Your first cousins and second cousins might be willing to help you. So they're not going to be in the want to category. They're not going to be in the champion advocate category, but they might be willing to if you ask them for help. So that's just how I see the prioritization. So hopefully that helps.
I have a message here from somebody in LinkedIn. He sent me out of the blue because we both went to the University of Maryland. He said, so we are both in the University of Maryland alumni group, reaching out in hopes to connect or do some networking with other chirps. How's everything been for you since the college days? So I wrote him back, hi, Andrew, thanks for connecting. I'm looking for networking opportunities to extend my job search. So I'm open to any you might know about. Kind regards, Sarah Lynn. And then, hi, Sarah Lynn, great to connect. I'm always looking to network with fellow Terps. Are you free for a call maybe next week or the following for a quick chat?
You never know.
Now, I know that it says he's a trusted financial advisor, so I kind of know what he's looking for.
Well, of course, right? But you know what? Folks like that, you don't have to stay away from them, right? Those are people who they are relationship builders. That's their job. Particularly financial advisors, right? Or mortgage brokers, or those kinds of folks, right? Real estate agents. They're not necessarily going to get your business right now, but they hope to build a relationship with you so that you never know. One day you'll think of them. And because of that, they know lots and lots of people. Right. And normally they're connector types and they like to, in fact, that just happened to me. I met one, a mortgage broker, same thing, Rachel, lovely connector type. She referred me to somebody in her network that she thought I would connect with just because. And we did. We had a lovely, engagement, and now we're going to probably work together. So in fact, we are going to work together. So you just don't know. I would take those meetings.
Yes.
Yeah. So good.
The only thing I would add to that, Sarah Lynn, is once you take the meeting, if it's a hard sell and it's all one way, that's not networking. That's not building relationships.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to, you'd have to use your judgment as you begin these relationships, especially with somebody who you really don't know. But like I completely agree with Shira. Most people, the majority of people, will fall into the description that Shira gave. But there will be those people out there that, just looking for your business, period.
I know.
Yeah.
I also think this is a really good time when you are in the job search to, take what it is that you are really good at and find a nonprofit that you can volunteer your services at. And I think that it's always that, Middle Eastern proverb that says, your gift makes room for you. And it is amazing the people that you'll meet, that also volunteer in these organizations, that that you can network with. But I think that if you seek to serve others first, I really do believe it's that karma thing, that things do come back. So I know that there are recently people who have said that they, like people who've done accounting or people who do website work, and they've just simply contacted different organizations and volunteered their services. And that's how they were able to connect with people who could connect them to jobs that they knew about.
Yeah, volunteering is a great thing in your job search for all kinds of reasons.
Well, and one of the key reasons in volunteering is, think about it in an interview. In an interview, you're telling somebody what you're good at and giving them examples and telling them. They have no way to know whether that's truthful or you're lying, right? Really? But when you're volunteering, you're actually doing things. People are seeing and experiencing your communication skills, your website skills, whatever the skills you have.
Yep.
You're validating that you're really good at this, and other people are seeing you. So now when they introduce you, there's a much more stronger recommendation that they can make because of what they've seen you actually do.
I will tell you, I actually not that long ago gave a reference for somebody who volunteered for my community service organization. She was a volunteer in a certain capacity, and she had them call and ask me for a reference. I never paid her $1, but I was able to talk about her work style. So it helped her in her job search. You never know.
And I have my best friend I met 25 years ago. We were both volunteering at the Holocaust Museum.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
25 years later, we're still best
Yeah.
friends.
You never
Yeah.
know. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah. How about you talk about time management and prioritization in the job search?
It's a great question. Vern, do you want to tackle that one?
Say that again, Chair?
Time management and prioritization.
Yeah.
The job search.
Well, I've always said, when you're searching for a job, it's a full-time job. And so if you're not spending a good maybe 30 to 40 hours a week, in the job search, the more time you spend effectively in the job search, the greater your results. You can waste time, obviously, in the job search. And you do have to spend some time, obviously, applying to jobs online and so forth and so on. But I would say every day you should be thinking about, what can I do today, an hour or 2 hours, to connect with people and network. There's recent research by a guy named Michael Simmons. He wrote for Forbes magazine, the #1 predictor of career success is a broad, open, diverse network. And that variable, that having that type of a network, correlated to higher compensation, more promotions, greater industry recognition. So the relationships you build over time, obviously critical in the job search, and then critical to your career success as you move forward. Shira, anything else that?
Oh yeah, well, a big one along those lines is spend no more than 10% of your time looking at job ads.
Yeah.
Can I let that hang in the air, please? Can I
Yeah.
put a period at the end of that statement? Okay. No more than 10% of your time. It seems counterintuitive because that's how we all learn to do job searching. You go to the job board, you answer the ad. The fact of the matter is that your competition is very stiff. There are so many people who are applying for jobs that have no business applying for that job, and it overwhelms the employers, and they're getting deluged, right, with all of these unqualified people, and it's very hard for them to find you for all kinds of reasons, not the least of which is, if you're applying through, if you're applying into what's called the HES, the applicant tracking system, which is the employer's database. There's an algorithm in there where the recruiter has to put in keywords, and then you may or may not have those keywords on your resume, and the database is trying to find you and may not, and it's nuts. And so, your best way to find a job is networking. It just is. 80 to 90% of the time, that's how people find their jobs, whether it's you've networked with somebody and they refer you to someone, or somebody hears about you, they tap you, they whatever. It is truly all about who you know. So that's why LinkedIn is such an important tool to expand your network and to resurrect relationships and to let people know what you're doing. And not to mention, we've talked about this before a lot, getting an internal champion. If you do hear about an opportunity, whether it's through a job board or not, but there's a live opening, finding somebody who knows somebody in the company, in the organization, and having them flag your resume before the hiring manager or before the recruiter is hugely important to get noticed, right, among the competition. So Eric, you know, spending your time mostly networking rather than job boarding, that's what would be my prioritization tip.
And
sure,
also, Eric, if you have time, if you have problems focusing, as I do, a friend of mine read an article that said, you know, talked about your cell phone, and you know, you get distracted by it. And the bottom line of the article said the best thing is to put your phone in another room. And it works with me because I don't want to have to get up and find it. Another thing is I block off 2-hour increments on my phone, and that helps me focus because I know I'm not going to get up from my desk until I hear that dinger go off. And I don't have to look at the clock and say, what time is it? Is it time for this or that? Because I've decided I'm going to dedicate 2 hours, and it helps me focus more and not look at my phone, not look at the time, etc.
Is that like the Pomodoro technique that you use?
I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Oh, it was invented in the 1960s by someone in Spain, where he set an egg timer that looked like a tomato to a 30 minutes interval. So he would work hard for 30 minutes and then take a break, and then set it again, and then work hard for 30 minutes and then take a break.
I mean, I would say it's the same thing. I just
Like
block off
Pomodoro
2
is, I
hours.
think, Spanish for tomato because his egg timer looks like a tomato.
yeah,
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
yeah. Well, I mean, that particular strategy that Sarah Lynn and
Well, it's
you,
Italian.
Eric, is it, I mean, that's a good strategy, whether it's 30 minutes, whether it's 2 hours. The key thing is, you know, to find a time where you can focus on exactly what you're doing. As Shira said, if it's trying to find that internal champion, you know, and you're using LinkedIn, it could take you a while, but stick with it and try to make as much progress as you can to find that internal champion for a job.
I'll give a story. A number of years ago, I recall this happening, and I've told this story multiple times because it was really interesting. So I had this a colleague, his name was Barry, and he reached out to me through LinkedIn, and he said, "Hey, Shira, I applied to a job, ABC organization, and the hiring manager is Mike. It looks like you know Mike on LinkedIn." Now, Barry had no idea what my actual relationship was to Mike. I could have just been a bare acquaintance. He had no idea. As it turns out, Mike was a former client, a good client, like a really good client. In fact, I'm still in touch with him to this day. But Barry didn't know that. So he reaches out, he goes, "Hey, I applied for this job." And I think he might even, he already had one interview, but he still wanted like to like an in, he wanted me to put in a good word or something like that. I said, "Barry, as it turns out, right, Mike's a good client." So I reached out to Mike. I said, "Hey, Mike, I understand Barry's, applied, whatever." And Mike says, "Oh my gosh, Shira, thank you so much for reaching out. I really trust your opinion. And so your recommendation goes a long way." Not only that, about a week or whatever later, a couple of weeks, I was at a networking meeting and Mike was there. And Mike pulls me aside. He goes, "Hey, tell me more about Barry." And I did. And Barry got the role. Okay. And you just never know when someone's going to be able to do that for you, and when you can do that for somebody else. Right? Be that internal champion for somebody else. Be that referral source, right? It goes both ways, because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And that's just the way that it goes. So whether it's on your behalf or on somebody else's behalf, you can be that connector.
So I gotta drop off now. I'm sorry, I got a busy day.
All right.
Okay.
Eric, have a
All right.
blessed day.
Good luck.
All right, guys. So with that, we're actually at time. So hopefully this was helpful for everybody. I'm going to stay on as I normally do for a short prayer call. If anybody would like to stay on with me, you're certainly welcome to. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you guys. Oh, so next week I am going to, I'm available. So I know it's the day after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
If you want to join me, I don't know, Vern, you're able to or whatever, but
No, I
That's okay.
I was assuming we probably wouldn't have a session today.
no, that's fine. I think most people would assume that I happen to be available. So even if just one of you comes, I'm happy to, happy to be here. So, so for those of you who would like to join me next week, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing everybody else whenever you can join us again.
All right. Thank you so
Take care.
much.
Good
Thank
luck,
you very
everybody.
much.
Yeah.